Good morning, friends. Matt Greer here. It is Wednesday in the middle of this awesome and intense festival week. So pleased that you are with us this morning. We had a fantastic beer choir last night, and those of you who weren't there should regret it. Honestly, there was a great crowd, great singing, just a really good time, and we had song leading by myself and Rebecca Kendall and our four guest singers, Mary Ruth and Ingrid and Michael and Christopher, and just had a fantastic time. So we'll be doing another beer choir probably in a couple of months. And if you haven't been in on that, we hope that you will. Of course, the main focus of this week is the fact that we are preparing a performance for Sunday. And if you are singing in the choir, I hope you are well aware about the details of the performance. If you're joining us, but you're not singing in the chorus with us, a reminder that the concert is Sunday at 3 p.m. at Visu Cleveland High School in Rio Rancho. That really is one of the best concert venues in Albuquerque. It's a bit of a hike to get up there, but it's a fantastic room, great staff, and every time we get this event together and I have a chance to hire orchestra players in particular love playing in that room. So we hope you will encourage your friends to come, and tickets are available at quintessence-abq.com. In addition to the Brahms, which is the second half of the concert, we will feature a set from our choral scholars who have been rehearsing every afternoon during this week. We've got 12 marvelous singers from high school and college choirs who have formed this chamber chorus, and they're singing an absolutely great set of pieces by contemporary choral composers. And so that'll be the first half of the concert. We're thrilled about that. And of course, the second half is the Brahms. During this week on these morning sessions, we've been doing a variety of things, but mostly we've been taking some time to enjoy thinking about this extraordinary piece that we're focusing on this week. Yesterday, we had a great chat with our soloists, Ingela Onstad and Michael Hicks. That's still available on YouTube if you would like to check it out. And tonight in our mass rehearsal, in the second half, Ingela and Michael will be joining us to kind of put together those three movements that involve solos. But this morning, I am really pleased that my guest agreed to chat with me. And I think many of you are aware of or have heard from Ken Medema through the years. He's been in Albuquerque many times. And by way of introduction, I just want to play a video of an original song of his. In 2020, of course, that was the year that nobody was singing together in rooms as we're used to doing. And that year, we did decide to go ahead and do a summer choral festival, and it was 5 days of completely virtual programming, which when it was first suggested to me, I just thought that just sounds awful, but it ended up being a really memorable and special week. And we had all kinds of guests from all over the world. Once we realized that geography was not an issue in that setting, we invited all kinds of fantastic people to be involved. And there was a song of Ken's that I've always loved that we decided to make the theme of the entire festival. It's called "The Song Is Alive Everywhere." And for that event, Ken recorded that song for us. I'm going to play that for you right now. This is Ken Medema singing "The Song Is Alive Everywhere."
Oh, the song is alive everywhere. Yes, the song is alive everywhere. And you are the ones who get to give the pitch. For the song is alive everywhere. Oh, the song is a garden full of flowers. Oh, the song is a garden full of flowers. And you are the ones who get to tend the soil. For the song is is a garden full of flowers. Oh, the song is a bright, clear morning sun. Oh, the song is a bright, clear morning sun. You are the ones who get to lift the shades. For the song is a bright, clear morning sun. Oh, the song is a city on a hill. Oh, the song is a city on the hill. And you are the ones who get to light the night. For the song is a city on the hill. City on the hill. Oh, the song is a road that leads back home. The song is a road that leads back home. And you are the ones who get to raise the signs. For the song is a road that leads back home. Yes, the song is alive everywhere. Yes, the song is alive everywhere. And you are the ones who get to give the pitch, who get to tend the soil, who get to lift the shades, who get to light the night, who get to raise the signs, who get to give the pitch. For the song is alive
Sorry. That was Ken Medema singing "The Song Is Alive Everywhere." And this has been one of those mornings when it has been a challenge to get video clips assembled and uploaded into this platform. So I knew I wanted to play a video of that song, and I'd forgotten, because I hadn't viewed it before I put it into the feed, that that was actually the video was highlights from that week, which really was kind of an extraordinary week. You were seeing photos of and video clips of all the folks who were involved in that from all over. Paul Smith and Voces 8, Mark Miller, Benjamin Mertz, and video clips of us singing together. So that was just marvelous. I'm so pleased that we were able to see that this morning. Well, let me introduce my friend who's going to have a conversation with me this morning. Many people have known Ken Medema as a singer, songwriter, presenter, preacher, ever since the 1970s, when he first became prominent, primarily in contemporary Christian music circles. And he has continued to perform, to improvise, to write, and to tell stories in a variety of settings. And it's one of the treasures of my life is my friendship with Ken. And we've had conversations about Brahms, and I thought this morning it would be great to talk to him and his experience with this piece. And he's joining us from the Bay Area of California. Ken, good morning.
Good morning, Matthew. Good.
How are you?
I am well. I am
good.
well. I've had both of my cups of coffee this morning, so I think I can survive.
I'm really, really glad to hear it. And it is, I mean, everybody is talking about the heat, but
Sure.
what's it like there? I'm not sure I know.
It's
You're in San
really
Francisco.
not too bad. We in Pleasant Hill here, which is in the suburbs of San Francisco, we will get into the 90s, but then it'll cool down to about 55 at night. So we open all of our windows and we're doing fine.
Excellent. Glad to hear it.
But
Well,
I'm glad that you want to talk about Brahms, because I came to Brahms in an interesting way. As a young fellow, I fell utterly and totally and completely head over heels, bonkers in love with Johann Sebastian Bach. My piano teacher, from the time I was 8, was a lover of Bach. I became a Bach nut, and maybe part of that was because I grew up in an ethnically Dutch environment, and we Dutch were very logical. Dutch Calvinists were very logical, very rational. We weren't too terribly romantic. We loved things that were mathematically, oriented. We even constructed our theology. If you're a good old, Presbyterian, our theology is kind of constructed that way. So I fell in love with Bach. Now, my introduction to romantic music was a bit spotty, because a lot of stuff I would listen to, I would simply dismiss out of hand. Can't do Verdi, can't do Schumann, not yet. Can't do Schubert. No, don't give me Berlioz. But Brahms had all the restraint and all the logicality that I had come to dearly love in Bach. The style was so carefully constructed, so obviously rational and logical, and the Brahms, the compositional techniques that Brahms used were so very similar to what I came to know and love in Bach. And so I fell in love with Brahms as a high school student. In fact, my music teacher, who was all into improvisation, said to me, "I want you to improvise a set of variations on Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and do it as Brahms would." Now, there are a couple of compositional techniques that Brahms uses. One of them is he loves to use what we call 2 against 3. So one hand is doing bop, 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 bop. The other was doing bop, 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 bop. He also loves a lot of what we call diminished 7th chords. So here is Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, as Brahms might have done it. So
gorgeous.
I got pretty familiar with Brahms and pretty much fell in love. Well, then at the end of my junior year in high school, I had the opportunity. I lived in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I had the opportunity to attend a 3-week music camp in the summer on the campus of Michigan State University for high school students.
Uh-huh.
I had a choral director in the high school where I've been studying who said to me, "Ken, I have an unusual opportunity for you." She loved me and really wanted, to sort of help me. She said, "Robert Shaw is coming to Michigan State this summer to conduct the Brahms Requiem." Now, I happen to know, she said, I happen to have a former student who is an accompanist for Robert Shaw. And if you will learn every note of every choral movement of the Brahms Requiem, I will get you into the summer chorus. Well, what do you think I did? I learned every single note. And in doing that, I became super familiar with not only the Requiem, but with Brahms' compositional style, and discovered I loved it more than ever. Discovered I was such a Brahms fan, and I would find myself memorizing notes and sitting in front of the stereo system weeping because look what he did here. Look what he did with developing that theme. Look how he took that seventh chord and extended it. Look at the wonder of this and this and this. Look at that fugue. And so I fell in love with Brahms all over again. And when it came to the first day of rehearsal, I was probably the only high school kid in that whole choir. They were all college and graduate students, but she had gotten me in, and when we began singing, I could hardly even sing because the experience was so potent and so filled with wonder for me, and Brahms came alive to me all over again, just all over again. So anyway, that was my first experience. I got to sing it a couple more times. But
it's amazing. And you were a tenor, I assume, as you are now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you, we are 3 rehearsals in, and you know what a technical challenge this piece is for singers. It's just relentless. And so one thing I'm curious about is, obviously you had a high school piano teacher who got you and loved you and wanted to expose you to music. Printed music for you as a blind person is not an option. And so for Western classical music that is all about decoding notation, how did that happen for you? It just technically. Braille.
All the classics that I learned through a bachelor's and master's degree, all the Beethoven sonatas, all the Ravel, all the Bach, that was all done with Braille music. And Braille music is tedious in the extreme because you read. Braille reading is this way, and so you read a few measures, but you can't skim, you can't scan. So you have to read, memorize, read, memorize, read. Make sure that you know that you've memorized everything, because you don't want to have to go back.
Gotcha.
and then all the choral stuff, that all the singing I ever did, I learned by ear. There isn't a great deal of vocal Braille music, at least the things that I wanted to do. That was all done by ear. And I remember when I joined the choir in college. In my first year in college, I joined the advanced choir, and the director said, "Well, are you going to have somebody type out the music in Braille?" I said, "No." I said, "Put me in the tenor section. I'll listen to a piece once and I'll have it." He doubted me. Until about 3 weeks in, I knew all the repertoire, and it was going to be fine.
That's extraordinary. So I wonder, I'd love to play just the opening of the first movement of the Brahms.
I'm going to cry again.
Yeah. It's okay. We're all among friends. There's something that I learned recently about just kind of the opening motives of the piece that I wanted to talk to you about. So let's listen to it first. We'll just listen to a couple of minutes of it. Here we go. It's hard to stop, but I'm going to leave it there for now.
See, there's nothing really big there. Nothing big and romantic and sort of flying all over. But the movement is so
Yeah.
careful and constructed with such care. It's just amazing.
So this is something I learned a couple of weeks ago in studying the piece, is that a lot of people talk about how one of the origins of the piece, specifically in the second movement, which we're going to hear a little bit of in a minute, is based on a German chorale tune, "If Thou But Suffer God to Guide Thee," bum 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 bum, which you can actually hear echoed in the second movement. What I read, though, and immediately became excited to talk to you about, is that there was some place that I read that the very first motive in the orchestra, dee da dee da dee da, is based on that chorale tune that you know so well,
Oh,
You know what I'm talking about,
oh.
which you use to open your song Bound for Greater Things. Exactly.
Whoa. Slick, Johannes. That was cool, baby.
So that chorale tune, which you know as accompanying the 40, is it the 42nd Psalm, as the deer
42nd
pants
Psalm,
for the
yeah.
water?
Yes.
What are your memories of that chorale tune growing up?
I remember on a Sunday morning when we sang that tune with complete with full organ, all. I remember that my grandfather, who had come to the U.S. from Holland, met a very strong Dutch brogue, and he would come and Sunday morning that was his favorite song, and when he would sing it, he could not sing on pitch, and it did not matter. He would take a deep breath and. As the deer about to falter in its trembling agony, searcheth for the streams of water. And he would just sing it out and didn't care if it was on pitch. And I remember that when I heard it later, with different rhythms. I thought, well, yeah, that's sort of interesting, but I kind of liked it the way we sang it with those long.
Yeah.
There was a kind of intensity about that, about the way we sang it, that I just loved. And now when you tell me that that's so powerful.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? I think that, especially for a musician like Brahms, it was in the water, all of those chorale tunes, even without even necessarily intending to. They just make their way in.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I want to play the beginning of the fourth movement, just a bit of the fourth movement, which everybody knows is How Lovely Are Thy Dwellings. And I want to ask you about some of your experience with this, because this is the movement that probably everybody first experienced at the Brahms Requiem.
Yeah.
So here's the beginning of the fourth. And our video editor is having difficulty this morning. I was supposed to be at 31:15.
Now, see, if you had an AI working for you, you could just say, "Play the beginning of How Lovely."
I know, it won't be long, Ken. So that's the end of the third. Here's the beginning of the fourth. So, what memories do you have of that particular movement?
Let me tell you a story. Several years ago, one of our friends was doing this with her church choir, and she had asked another one of our friends, Sid Davis, some of you may know that name, to come as a conductor, a guest conductor. And she had asked me to come and do some reflections in between the movements. For example, the second movement, the whole idea, all flesh is as grass, and so I asked people to tell me about a time when life seemed fragile, almost hopeless, and so people would tell those stories, and we had 3 or 4 or 5 stories, and then we would sing the movement. So what we did with How Lovely, because usually when people hear how lovely is that dwelling place, O Lord of hosts, the Hebrews and the ancient Hebrews would have thought about the temple. Maybe Christian types would think about heaven, or something like that. So I said to the choir, think about a person in whom you sense the Spirit of God is alive, uniquely alive. And tell us about that person. Well, we heard some wonderful stories. Somebody said, "Oh, I had an uncle who was the most generous, giving, Spirit-filled person I've ever met." So then I would do a little improv based on ideas from the movement. For example, I might say, for example, if they told me about this uncle, I might say,
so was this uncle, wonderfully, wondrously so alive.
So I would do these improvisations based on the stories. Then, when we finally came to let's sing the movement, I said, in your mind, think of these people who were uniquely, spiritually alive. And when you put how lovely is thy dwelling place, put their names in there and their pictures. And Matt, when we sang the movement, it was transformative, and people were weeping all the way through it. It was, it gave the thing a whole different new texture that we had never even thought of before.
That's amazing. Yeah, the thing about the piece, isn't it, is that we as choral musicians have sung a lot of requiems, right? And that can be a different experience. I mean, of course, it's a different experience singing Foray as it is to singing Verdi or singing Mozart. But what's extraordinary about this one is not only, I think, that it doesn't involve the Latin text that we know, that it's an entirely its own creation, but that the overarching theme of it is comfort. That's where it starts, and that's where it ends.
Yes.
It is comfort and blessing those who have gone on and blessing those who are remaining. It's the whole thing is about comfort to me.
Yes, it is. And sometimes that comfort is gentle and soft like this, and then sometimes it's, grave, where is your victory, and it just builds. And the wonderful thing about the way Brahms builds is it's so sequential, it's so logical, it's so it never feels like you're flying in unmarked territory. You always know where you come from, and you always know kind of where you're headed. He gives you all these clues so that you can move with the music. I love that about Brahms.
Well, speaking of that, and speaking of, getting a taste of the triumphal nature of some of this, three of the movements end with incredibly constructed fugues. And I want to
Fugues.
talk to you about fugues in general, but first let's hear one of these. This is the end of the second movement, going from one of the funeral marches, the all flesh is grass, into that wonderful turn where the word aber, but the souls of the righteous, are going to be okay. It's a colloquial translation. So, and it's just, yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just fantastic. So let's hear, this is the end of the second movement. stop it there. So that's the first fugue. There's an even longer one in the third movement and a longer one still in the seventh movement. And I have been, just kind of throwing this word around with my 125 choral singers that are signed up to sing the thing. And we all have like our favorite musical forms. I think I love themes and variations, but I also really, really love fugues. And I think when I went to college and encountered fugues for real in music theory, fugues get a bad rap, and it's maybe because of people encountering them and trying to master them and well-tempered clavier of Bach and stuff like that. But I remember hearing somebody say that the classic definition of a fugue is a piece of music in which the voices enter one at a time and the audience leaves one at a time.
Well,
tell me what you think about fugues, and I know you love
introduced the fugues early because I fell in love with Bach. And my piano teacher would say to me, every time we learned a new piece, you make up something that sounds like that. So I was making up little fugues when I was, 10 years old. And I kept doing it until I got to the point where I could do it fairly comfortably. So my Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in Brahms style ended with a fugue. For me, it's so much fun to be able to follow those voices as they come in and as things change, and they're all the devices. We could name them all, but the point is the thing keeps coming back and changes, and it's so logical. And for me, there's great solace and great comfort and great delight in just following that through.
Yeah, in each of the choral fugues that we're encountering this week, there are those fantastic introductions of those statements in those movements. Oh, yeah. And then there's also fantastic moments where the chorus comes together and sings something in a homophonic texture. And those moments are so powerful because
they're a contrast.
Exactly. Yeah. But I just think as a musical device, there's something kind of theological about a fugue. There's something about individual voices coming together to state the same thing in a different way, in a different idea. And what's so interesting to me every time I hear you improvise a fugue is the stuff that's happening in between the statements of the main theme, and the beautiful passages of notes in between the different voices.
And the thing is, each voice, and here's the cool thing, if you can do it, and I've not really figured out quite yet how to get it right, but each voice has its own trajectory, its own individuality. It never duplicates what another voice is doing. It is its own traveler on its own road. And the thing is, these roads intersect at various places. But one voice is you never sacrifice what a voice is doing. So that, for example, when the second voice comes in, but this first voice, it's got to have its own independence. It's got to have its own movement, so that it's not just chording in the background. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We're not just playing the rhythm chart. It's got its own melody, its own trajectory, its own journey, and all these have to come together. They come together. They intersect. They separate. They intersect. They separate. They intersect. They separate, and then finally at the end, they come together in this wonderful conclusion where they all reach the Holy Land together.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I have never gone down the road of composition or anything like that, but I do remember I had a semester-long counterpoint class in undergrad, as you know, many of us do, major in music. And of course, the culminating project was writing an original fugue, and I got a B. So I guess it could have been worse. I can't remember what the subject was, but yeah, there's just a source of endless fascination to me. Well, Ken, I wish you were going to be here for this performance.
Oh, I do too. You guys will be in my heart and mind, and I will be singing it right along with you.
I so appreciate it. And thank you for spending some time with me today to talk about this piece that I know is so special to you. And we will look forward to seeing you again soon.
Okay, good. Thank you, Matt.
Okay, thanks,
Have a
Ken.
great day.
Well, friends, that was great fun. Yesterday, I said every day that we did this week, I would be doing a trivia question and giving away a coffee mug, and I forgot to do that yesterday. So I am going to, if I can bring up the graphic to get you excited. Yes. So here is a fantastic Quintessence coffee mug that could be yours if you answer today's trivia question correctly, if you're the first one to do so. Of course, the donuts in that photo are not included. This week is all about Brahms, and you know, the thing about trivia questions is everybody has Google, so we'll see who has the opportunity to answer this first. And this is actually a two-part answer, just to make it a little bit more difficult. And the question is simply this: Brahms was born in 1833 in a northern German city, and he died in 1897 in an Austrian city. What German city was he born in, and what Austrian city did he die in? The Austrian city is where he spent most of his career. So if you pop that in the chat, I'm looking for two cities, and the first one to do that correctly wins a fantastic Quintessence coffee mug. Born in a northern German city, died in an Austrian city, 1833 to 1897. Anyone? Anyone? The second part, I suspect, is easy. Okay. We've got Lori Zipper won, and it totally doesn't look like you just pasted this in from Wikipedia, Lori. Born May 7th, 1833 in Hamburg, died April 3rd, 1897 in Vienna. Congratulations, Lori. You are the winner of a Quintessence coffee mug, and those will be in next week. So we'll have to chase you down to find them. Okay, friends, thank you so much. So here's the thing is, this is the last of the Mornings with Matt that we are doing this week. But tomorrow there is a special session at 10:30. If you're registered to sing the festival, you'll receive a link for this. It will actually be a Zoom link because the presenter wants to be able to see your faces. Tomorrow from 10:30 to noon Mountain Time, Dana Boyd, who's a fantastic musician and oboist by background, who is trained in body mapping and breath work, is going to be doing a 90-minute session specifically aimed at singers and choral singers. And she wants to be able to see your faces because there are specific gestures and things she's going to ask you to do. And so, again, this will be by Zoom. If you're registered for the festival, that's part of your registration packet. Look for a Zoom link. And of course, also, if you're registered for the festival, we have a mass chorus rehearsal tonight at 6:30. So be here early to it's our last rehearsal before we invite the orchestra in on Friday. Thanks for joining me this morning, friends. I hope you enjoyed it. Look forward to seeing you tonight. Bye.